everyone, welcome back to Aisha Speaks Truth. We have a lot to unpack today. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of my viral TikTok video. I'm going to be showing that, but I'm going to unpack my viral TikTok about Candace Owens. Why what she's saying is not just misleading, but it's also destructive. Then we'll listen to Dinesh D'Souza's interview that exposes why so many Muslim voters lean left. And finally, we'll break down this government shutdown everyone's talking about. Of course, it's pertinent to us right now, and what's really going on, what the media isn't saying, and why it reveals how weak our leadership has become. So get comfy, grab your coffee, and let's jump in. So this first video I'm going to show you guys, this is from my own page, Aisha Speaks Truth, on TikTok. Guys, this is where I got my start here when in politics. And I think that kind of expanded a lot with X America News. So I'm very happy to be here. But this video is almost at 100,000 views right now. It's sitting, I think, at like 84,000, something like that. And I just dropped it like a day or two ago. This is talking about Candace Owens. And I break down some of the findings because, as you know, she's doing a whole series on the Charlie Kirk assassination. And you would think that one is spinning this as, this is my friend, I want to make sure that we find his murderer. But I think in that, you should be partnering with the FBI to do something, to do it like that, versus maybe the way she's going about it is basically impeding on the FBI investigation, I would say, because it could taint the public's perception of what's actually taking place. And therefore, in my opinion, I think it could possibly lead to an interference with the trial and with public, again, perception. So I dropped this video because I don't know about you guys, but I'm so sick of, again, it was the mainstream media that kind of pushed me into getting my start, and of course the Lord as well pushed me into getting my start, because I was just fed up with the lies and the misinformation that we were getting, and I just saw how that was destroying our family and our family, just our nation. I call our nation our family. And I think Charlie Kirk was way ahead of his time. He saw this, I'm 30, 34. This guy was 18 when he started this. He saw this way ahead of time. And it led him to this passionate pursuit to make America great again, to partner with Donald Trump, to bring us back to traditional families, traditional means, or our traditions in America that we once stood for, that our founding fathers had in mind for this country. And so with this whole debacle with Candace Owens and her findings and her constant calling out of different people, I had to just put this into perspective because it was bothering me, and I didn't know how many more conservatives this was also just bothering, because it's a lot of misinformation and a lot of stuff coming back that she doesn't have any evidence for, that she's painting as true. And again, when you put these words out, it stays in people's minds, and it's not that easy to say, oh, it wasn't true, so let's just forget about that, right? Because you spent like at least 30 minutes talking about it. Psychologically, people are going to more than likely believe it and come into agreement with it because of that long of time they're watching you talk about misinformation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play my clip from TikTok. I've been watching Candace Owens' recent series about the killing of Charlie Kirk, who she even calls her best friend. And honestly, a lot of what she's saying has already been debunked. And the way she's going about this whole thing is not just messy, it's dangerous. First, she claimed that Charlie Kirk and Bill Ackman had a falling out at an event Ackman invited him to. She spent an entire episode spinning a narrative with no proof. But right after that, Bill Ackman himself released actual text messages between him and Charlie, showing they were completely cordial, had a great time, and were on good terms. So the idea that there was some big falling out is just false. Second, she tried to cast doubt on a letter Charlie Kirk wrote to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Candace insinuated that Bibi misinterpreted the letter and twisted it into something it wasn't. She didn't even have the letter. But then the letter itself surfaced, signed by Charlie Kirk, where he clearly expressed his love for Israel and even gave step-by-step recommendations for how Israel can improve its PR against Hamas propaganda. There was no misinterpretation. Candace's claim, again, was simply not true. And now she's questioning Turning Point USA, an organization Charlie built with his sweat and tears from his teens. But here's the bigger issue. She presents these kinds of stories as just asking questions, but in reality, reality, she's making insinuations that lead people to believe lies. And because she phrases it that way, she avoids accountability when her claims get proven false. That's a tactic we've seen from the very left-wing media she used to call out in her prime. The results? Millions of people, especially those who trust her voice, are being led astray by narratives with no evidence. And worse, it causes unnecessary division within the conservative base. Instead of uniting, we're being splintered by false claims and messy drama. We should probably call her messy.com. And let's not forget, Candace was let go by Turning Point USA after her comments about Hitler and the Jews. She hasn't been at recent Turning Point USA events that I've been at, and she's no longer affiliated with Blexit, which I'm affiliated with. So you have to ask, is this about truth, or is it about money, attention, or even drifting away from the conservative values she once stood for? At the end of the day, we have to be wise, even within our own movement. We can't blindly follow voices, even popular ones, when they're spreading misinformation that weakens us. For me, this isn't about drama. It's about truth, unity, and not falling into the very same traps we used to call out on the other side. All right. So that was my entire take on watching a few of her episodes on Charlie Kirk. Now, look, I have watched Candace Owens. She's not the reason that I voted for Donald Trump. I was going to vote for him regardless. I voted for him in his first term as well. But of course, her rhetoric around it and her support definitely amplified that. But again, it's not the reason I did vote for him. I would say Candace Owens, she's bold, she's smart, she's made some great points in the past, but lately it's felt like she's picking fights for attention, not truth. And she'll attack her allies, is what it seems like, but stay silent about the real enemies. So when you look at like our ally, for example, Israel, and we look at our enemy, Hamas, and radical Islam, which have constantly said death to Israel, death to America. So the radical ideologies that surround Israel and threaten the very freedom we defend. What's concerning is also who's listening to her. So I've seen some people surface on the internet saying that her audience has now become a huge part of her audience has shifted now to the Gen Zs. And if you guys know Charlie Kirk, if you're familiar with him, which I know a lot of us are, and if you aren't, you probably are now. His audience was mainly the Gen Zs. He understood how important it is to raise up the next generation so that this country becomes shaped the way it needs to go. Because the way we were going, we saw a lot of the left-leaning ideologies, and I don't have to necessarily point them out for you guys. Gender confusion and all these things like that actually is destructive for a nation because it doesn't build family, which is the core, the nucleus of a nation. And again, like I mentioned before, Charlie Kirk was ahead of his time. Now, what I'm seeing is instead of Candace Owens as one thing she could do, which is join Turning Point USA, as you've seen Ben Shapiro has done, as you've seen Tucker Carlson has done, as you've seen Megyn Kelly has done, because she's went on tour and even spoke to some of these youth, and that was on behest of Turning Point USA. You haven't seen her. I don't even know if she's been invited to do it or what, or if, the distancing from her is something intentional. I don't know. I cannot speak for Turning Point USA in regards to that. I am, for you guys that aren't familiar, I'm going to insert this, that I am the state chair for the Southeast region in Blexit, which is Turning Point USA arm, a grassroots arm. So, and she's credited, of course, as being the founder of Blexit, but she's no longer affiliated with it at all in any sense of that. And so that was handed over to Charlie Kirk, which he happily embraced. One of my good friends, who was the one that brought me into Blexit, she recorded an interview with Charlie Kirk, where she basically asked him, why did you think that Blexit would be an important addition to Turning Point USA? Because it's mainly, at that time, it was a bunch of core, just mainly African Americans, but now, I'm joining it and I see tons of different races a part of this movement in Blexit, not just Turning Point USA as a whole, but Blexit. There's Black, Hispanics, there's people from all over in that arm of Turning Point USA. So it's no longer just Black exit, like it's incorporating everybody. And I love that because I'm more used to that, to be honest. But you see, my concern is that Gen Zs, as we have seen them before, they're gullible and they are a different type of breed, different type of generation, of course. Okay. And in every sense of that word, they're more gullible. They are searching for truth. They don't like falsehood. They want to be passionate and stand up for something. They're more bold. They have the age of information right at their fingertips. They have social media right at their fingertips, and they need guidance. And without the right guidance, we're going to see. I believe we'll see them spiral in a way we don't want our that next generation to be. So because of Gen Zs, they're searching for truth. They're hungry for authenticity, which is why TikTok is so huge, and it's called the most authentic app because again, that entire DNA of TikTok thrives off of you just clicking on your camera and speaking your mind, right? You don't have to be in a polished background. You can be in your car. They love videos like that. You're just in your car sitting down and talking in your kitchen, etc. The more authentic, the better. But they also tend to believe, Gen Zs, whatever sounds bold and confident, which Candace Owens is a mastermind at presenting information in that exact framework, boldly and confidently. And not only that, she's a really good orator. Like I give her props. Like she has a beautiful gift. But I honestly think that I believe her gift has been tainted by the belief systems that she has of, of Israel, of Mariology, of all of that. And I believe the once discernment that she could have trusted in is now deception. And, the spirit of deception, if you know anything about the word of God and the spiritual realm, the spirit of deception doesn't come before you and say, I'm the spirit of deception. You're deceived. It doesn't do that. It's hidden, and it will let you think that from your past experiences, because you've gotten things right and you've done this and you've done that, that you're still on course, when really everyone else around you can see that something is completely off. And that's what I think a lot of the people in the conservative movement are waking up to, is that there's a lot of conservative voices that we can't necessarily lean on. Charlie Kirk was one of those that you could lean on because he was a real Christian. He wasn't a Catholic, he was a Christian, and he held to those beliefs. And I love one of his videos. He said that you can never get me to worship Mariology. You can never, and I'm paraphrasing it. He basically said you could never get me to convert to that because I will not worship Mary or any of the other saints. They have no power, and it's the truth. But the Gen Zs, they have passion, but not much discernment, right? And I can't help but wonder if what Candace Owens is doing, if this is strategic, is she's trying to maybe, and this is just a theory, guys, not anything. It's just what I'm seeing. But this was mainly Charlie Kirk's base, not Candace's Owens base. But now it's turning into that because of all of the series that she's doing and all of these I'm just asking question type of rhetoric. Is she trying to steal Charlie Kirk's base, basically? Let's think about it. Charlie built Turning Point USA around equipping Gen Z with truth, with facts, okay, which we have seen has been lacking in Candace Owens' rhetoric, with history. He was very skilled at bringing in the historical context into the current policies to discern how it's going to move forward. He was really good at breaking those things down. This is why he called out DEI, which a lot of people falsely, I'm going to say that very, very strongly, because falsely said that he was racist, because he pointed out truth about the Black community, about minority groups, about what was taking place with these policies. And he also did this with purpose. This is what drove him, is that he had a purpose. He could see, he had a vision, right, about what he could see Turning Point USA, America becoming. And he went after that with blood, sweat, and tears, everything. When you hear the stories of what he did, is incredible. But I'm going to digress there. Now here comes Candace, stirring division, dragging his name, and pulling those same followers into confusion. When young people lose discernment, deception becomes their discipleship. And discipleship, as we've seen with the life of Jesus, with the men that were untrained, they had no academics around them, except for some of them did. But these men, what the Pharisees said about Jesus's followers was, some of them was that they were unskilled. How do they know the things that they know, right? Like when you look at Stephen, for example, they couldn't even argue against him. So they resulted to violence. They couldn't put up an argument against him. He just shut it down because it's truth. And I think you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, what are you after? Are you after truth? Are you after just you being right and that's it? Or are you okay admitting that you are wrong for the sake of truth, which is Jesus, right? The word of God. He is ultimate truth. Are you willing to say, put your crown, the things you've worked so hard to accomplish, put that down at his feet? And this is me when it comes to my social media. I consider, for example, my social media platform that I've worked very hard to build for these last few years, and the brand partnerships that I have as almost like my crown, right? Because when we get to heaven, we'll have a crown. But I will happily lay that down for Jesus and for truth. I will happily lose followers for Jesus and for truth, right? So when young people lose discernment, deception becomes discipleship. They start following voices that sound courageous instead of voices that stand on conviction. And that's the difference between those two. Now, Candace Owens can say she has conviction, she stand by certain things, and she said that, like, I'm willing to stake my whole career on this, on that, etc. But we understand that Charlie Kirk had deep conviction. This man lost his life over his convictions, didn't waver one bit. And I think this stirred the giant in America. And the giants I'm mentioning are the people that were maybe somewhat conservative or were conservative, but weren't really standing up and doing anything, that are now awakening. And I'm telling you guys, as the Southeast state chair, just for my region alone, we are onboarding like crazy this week, this past week. I have someone that's assisting me who's an amazing woman. She was state chair before me, trying to get these in because I have a baby, I have all these other things going on, and there's so many people on board and that we don't want to slip through the crack. And these people are passionate; they are ready. When we sit down and we have these interviews with them, they're more so just like a just a meet and greet kind of meeting. And we talk to them about why they want to get involved, what do they see happening, where do they see their gift being in this movement. When we sit down and talk, these people are passionate. These young people are ready to run. Because when you see a man die for his conviction, you have got to ask yourself, like, this is the same thing. This is what we saw with Donald Trump. And I believe this is why so many Americans were like, something's with this man. Because why are they attacking him so much? Why are they willing to take down his entire life, everything he's built? And why is he standing and saying, I will happily lay it down for America? Something's up, right? And we started to see that this man, Donald Trump, if he's almost got assassinated twice, and he's still in the game running. Something is up with this guy. He has a deep conviction, and that conviction is contagious. It's the same thing with Charlie Kirk. When he passed, we saw that his conviction was very contagious. And the sleeping giant, the conservative in this nation, those that had, like Charlie Kirk said, there are more people that that agree with me that don't. And there's a lot of people onboarding. I know on my last episode last week, we said 62,000 plus were joining, and I'm sure that number has gone up because I'm in the group chats with Blexit, just Blexit part, not all of Turning Point USA arms, just one arm, and it is piling up like crazy with the amount of people that are trying to get in the door. And I've even had friends reach out to me personally saying, give me the link. How can I get involved? Oh, thank you so much. My producer just sent 120,000 now are wanting to onboard to start their own chapter in Turning Point USA. Those are new chapter requests. That's very different from just saying, I want to be a part of a chapter. We're talking about people starting brand new chapters, okay, all over this nation. So again, that conviction is contagious. And when you see somebody going after something so hard, like you saw with the disciples, and this is what was a part of, if you've ever seen the movie Case for Christ, The Case for Christ, when he saw that there were so many people willing to die for the name of Christ and for the stance that they took with him, that Jesus did die, that he was the Messiah, he did die, and he did rise from the third day, that they were willing to be crucified upside down for that, something's up. That conviction is very contagious, because who would do that if it's not true? How many people would do that if it's not true? That's the question, right? And we saw, Charlie Kirk, for example, was out there running hard, and to the point where it cost him his life. So while Candace is making headlines, I think we need to pause and ask, who's shaping the next generation's worldview? because the influencer who wins Gen Z today shapes America's culture tomorrow. Charlie Kirk knew that. And that brings me to this next point. I came across a powerful clip from Dinesh D'Souza that reveals exactly what happens when people or movements have no moral compass. So we're going to get into that. But right before we get into that, I want to bring in our first sponsor. This is Augusta Precious Metal. And Augusta Precious Metal, this is it's a U.S. based company founded in 2012 that specializes exclusively in gold and silver IRAs. They help retirement savers diversify by rolling over traditional IRAs or 401ks into precious metals. This company stands out for one big reason, that's ethics and customer service. They've been named Money Magazine's best overall gold IRA company 3 years in a running, 2022 to 2024. And Investopedia calls them the most transparent pricing company, which is saying a lot in the industry that has a lot of gimmicks and a lot of scams. Augusta is also A plus rated with the BBB, AAA with the Business Consumer Alliance, and they've got over 1,000 five-star reviews from customers who are very satisfied. They also offer something rare that we hardly see, and that's the highest buyback guarantee. So if you ever want to sell back your gold to them, you can do that with a peace of mind. They also have zero setup, custodian, or storage fees for up to 10 years. Everyone qualifies for that. Plus, there's a 7-day money back guarantee when you open your account. So that means there's no pressure to buy. You can just decide if it's right for you. Augusta is big on educating people, which is one of the things that I actually love about this company. They actually help you avoid the common traps and misinformation some companies use, and you get to choose your own gold and silver products. They don't push anything on you. They have no incentive to do that, so you won't find that there with them. You're in charge and you remain in charge. If you're looking for long-term, honest support for your retirement savings, you're looking into investing into gold and silver IRAs, then Augusta Precious Metals really delivers, and I'd highly recommend you check them out. Okay, so there is a video that I also did. This is from my TikTok, guys. Welcome to Aisha's TikTok. Another video from my TikTok with D'Souza and a Muslim who explains why Muslims tend to vote left. Let's go ahead and play that.
As you know, it's sexually permissive, and this political movement appears strangely allied with radical Islam. Can you explain this?
When I was an extremist, Islamist, fundamentalist, I would only vote left.
Why is that?
I saw them as very stupid. I would fear the conservatives because they come with principle. That's not someone they can brainwash. But the left, I know they have no values and no principles to begin with. I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump. Never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around in pride parades. And Islamic extremists are against gays and homosexuals and transgenders, but they want the left to go and get busy with that. They want them, go speak about the climate, go speak about abortion, go kill yourselves, go do that. And Omar, she's fighting for abortion rights and all the other, my body, my choice, yes, go do that, go do that. But would she have an abortion? Never. Never. Would she kill a Muslim in her stomach? Never.
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
The future of America has to be Muslim.
This is such an interesting clip, guys. So in this interview, Dinesh sits down with a Muslim voter who openly admits that he votes for the left. You know, when he was in that I don't believe he's a part of the Islamic thing, culture or religion anymore because of what he said in the beginning of the interview. And when Dinesh asked him why, the man says something shocking, but he was honest. He says, because the left has no principles. They are easy to manipulate. Okay. And just think about that for a second. In the spiritual realm, we understand that that manipulation is the spirit of Jezebel. But I want you to just think about this for a second. He's not saying he agrees with their policies or shares their world view. Not at all. Right? He's saying that because they stand for nothing absolute, they're easily controlled. And that honesty exposes why moral relativism always collapses. It's because when there's no fixed truth, everything becomes negotiable. If truth depends on your feelings, convenience, or whatever's trending, then whoever has the loudest voice or the biggest platform gets to decide what's right or wrong for everyone else. And we've seen this. Think about the ad with help me with her name, Sydney Sweeney. Think about that ad, right? A lot of people were getting mad because she said she had good genes, etc. And people were saying, were getting mad, calling it racist, etc. Who set the standard to say that because you didn't look like her, that or somehow you're less than, right? And this is what we get into this. There's only one truth that I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. We're talking about Jesus. And this is what I also put on one of my posts that somebody commented on when I talked about the riots and stuff like that with George Floyd. I mentioned about the riots that, that Charlie Kirk didn't have to do that. You saw the response of his life lived out, because the reason why that whole picture went around, guys, was because they said that, what's the name? George Floyd was a martyr. We're saying Charlie Kirk was definitely a martyr. And so we have to compare those two. What was the outcome of the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk versus George Floyd? It actually shows the life they lived when they were living. And I'm not trying to taint, someone that passed away. I'm just being real and honest. So when we look at it, rest in peace to both of them, and God bless both of them. But there's a big difference between the manipulation we're seeing here, right? And when it comes to the left and the conservatives, right? About us having principles and us being fixed on the truth. We have a fixed truth. We have something we're standing on, right? And this is what the Gen Zs like. They like that principles, those as well. So that also, I believe, is what draws a lot of them to the conservative movement. But what you see is people are basically allowing Hollywood. They got the biggest platform, like I mentioned. They have the loudest voice, right? They have a lot of money they can put into these medias and all this stuff. And people will allow them to tell them what the standard of beauty is for their life. If you are a Christian, like myself, that doesn't fly with me. I'm sorry. You can't tell me that because I have big lips that I'm not beautiful enough. You can't tell me that because I'm dark skinned that I'm not accepted. It's not going to work with me. I'm sorry. I just don't believe you, because I believe somebody who made me and created me and you. And he is the only one that has the last say so. And he's the only one that sets the standard for my life and my home. So because I have that as my fixed truth, as my worldview, you can say all you want that I don't look good doing this or that. And I'm telling you, it's not, that is your opinion, and that's okay. It's not going to matter to me. It's not going to matter, because you didn't make me. You are not God, and you don't have the final say so. Even when somebody in an ad as big as a company like American Eagle, even if they were to say, which I don't believe they were trying to say this, that the standard of beauty is white with blue eyes, etc., that still would not cause me to riot and say anything against them, because other than the truth, which is that I'm created, I'm wonderfully and I'm beautifully and wonderfully made in the image of God. And to say that I am less than because I don't look like the way God created somebody else negates purpose, because we all have a specific purpose and reason why we were created for the time we're created, and reason why we have the very, makeup of who we are is because God has a specific purpose for each of us. And I will fulfill my purpose. And it's not going to look like somebody else's. So when you have this type of, when you settle that in your heart, it's very hard to get that person to move with the changes of this world. Because if you remember, at one point they said small lips were beautiful, and then they changed that, and now everybody wants big lips. And then at one point they said this was beautiful, they changed their standard of beauty all the time. They don't have anything fixed. Okay, because that's just how men are. And when I say men, I mean all of us, women and men. That's just how we are as without God. We are fickle. We're manipulative. Without Jesus, this is how we fall. This is just how we are. And so I thought this was very interesting. So the left loves to say your truth is your truth, right? But that mindset is a trap. It sounds open-minded and it's actually a setup. Because if nothing is absolutely true, then nothing is absolutely wrong. Okay? Either. You've never seen a plate that only has one side, right? You make these principles up that sound good. There's a side to it. There's always a side to it. And that's how corruption creeps in. Power fills the vacuum that truth leaves behind. When people stop standing for what's right, those in power start redefining right and wrong for everyone else, usually in a way that keeps them in control. That's why moral relativism will always destroy itself. It promises tolerance, but it ends in tyranny. It promises acceptance, but it ends in exploitation. Okay. And we saw this. I mean, I love that Charlie Kirk pointed this out. I think it was Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. I remember her pointing this out too in one of her videos. That when we looked at I recently saw it in Charlie Kirk's as well. But when we look at the transgender community, for example, they say we want to be called this and that, right? And we're like, okay, you can be called that if you want, but you can't make us call you that, right? But then when we allow even that to happen, they say, "Oh no, we also want to be able to change as we are. Where we want to say we are women when we're actually men, and we want to be able to change in your bathroom and go to your bathroom." Okay, so it's like you give them an inch and they take a mile, and this is what Charlie Kirk also pointed out. I remember him in one of his videos, and so did Candace Owens. That this is the reason. So when you allow this seed to take root and you're like, okay, let's just give them this, and you see this with Israel and Hamas, we'll get to that later. We'll give them this. If they really just wanted that and that was all their agenda and that was it, and it was just the enemy saying, okay, if you give me this, that's all I'll take and I don't want anything else. If that were the case, which we see that that's definitely not, and I think it would be a different story. But when you allow something like this to take root, this fruit that comes with it, there's going to be more that's required of you to give, to mold society to what makes them feel comfortable, not what is truth, but what makes them feel. And if we're an entire nation by what we feel, this is where the whole I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but this is where the whole what's it called, fault what's it called about divorce, that law that was put into place, um is basically there was a law that was put into place with marriage, for example, that allow you no fault divorce. There we go, no fault divorce. And basically, this what this did in practice though was say, like, I don't feel that we're compatible, right? Versus what's truth. Like your feelings are beautiful. They're made there for a reason, but you cannot be led by feelings. Like sometimes I don't feel like going to work. Okay, but do I go to work? Do I honor my collaborations? Do I honor my word to the brands? Yes. Okay. Sometimes I don't feel like doing certain things, but I can't allow that to dictate what is my truth. What am I going to stand on? For example, if I don't feel like doing something, I think about the word of God where it says, do everything as if you're going to do it unto the Lord. That drives me, that pushes me. Or yeah, and this may sound, I mean, to the people that are with me, you're with me, but those that aren't, this is going to sound really weird to you all. But when I look at Charlie Kirk's life and the things that he said when he was on stage about working hard and pushing through, and I saw the fruit of his movement of what he was talking about, and I look at Donald Trump, who also says we want the best on the job and we want the best people in finance to be helping with this tariff situation, and we want all this in how he had to have some grit to be a billionaire, and knowledge, and he had to have some grit to do this presidential work that you can never again go back to just being normal after that, right? Like you have to constantly walk around, excuse me, with secret services the rest of your life. You can't ever go back to just being normal, just being a simple billionaire. And when you become a president, you know, but they encourage me, and even in my current season, to get to work even when I don't feel like it. The word of God, and watching these people that are on the conservative side that also are Christian, even though Donald Trump, he's a Christian. I understand he's growing. He's not perfect. None of us are. But they have some grit, and that grit is encouraging that they will press through no matter what. When you, like I mentioned, the two assassinations, this dude pressed through no matter what, right? He was still going. He believed that this was his purpose. Now, let me see where I'm at. So you see in politics and in the media, even in the church sometimes, when a society refuses to say this is right and this is wrong, it doesn't become more compassionate. It becomes more vulnerable. It becomes more vulnerable to manipulation, for people that have a certain agenda to take advantage of that, right? And this is exactly why voices like Candace Owens can become dangerous. She's loud, confident, emotional, and that appeals to a generation that's hungry for meaning. But when you fix that hunger for truth with a lack of discernment, you end up with blind followers instead of bold thinkers. And what Charlie Kirk's mission was, what he was trying to do, is try to get them to be bold thinkers. When I look at I've seen some influencers called Candace following Candace cult, because even if you call her out for saying certain things and you got the facts to back it up, they'll still say, well, you know, because they're loyal to her. And that's beautiful to have, but you have to take accountability for that type of following. You have to. You, like, that is a biblical thing. You have to take accountability to the things, for the things you say, whatever. And in that video, as you guys watched, that I said, is that she likes to put everything under the guise of, I'm just asking questions. Or even, on one of her interviews with, gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. I feel like I still got pregnancy brain, and I'm not gonna lie, but one of her interviews with Piers Morgan, she's, when he asked her about, why would you tell the veterans that they should become dishonorably discharged? Like, you don't got to live through what dishonorably discharged means. Why would you encourage them to do that? And she was like, she kind of, her statement to me, and you can go and watch that. Her statement to me was, I'm not taking accountability for what they do when I say that. I will say it, but your actions, I'm not accountable for your actions. But here's the thing, that's a worldly way of thinking. That is not something, that is not what the Lord tells us, right? He, even with the Pharisees, he says, follow their deeds, but don't follow the ways, that the things that they do, right? He even calls the Pharisees accountable to the people that fell, that they led astray, right? That they were leading, but not leading correctly. That was their following. So even though when you have a following, and she said in that interview with Piers Morgan that people had personally reached out to her and asked, what should I do? And she mentions become dishonorably. She answered publicly, I would just become dishonorably discharged, even if it was my kid. You're accountable to that rhetoric. You got millions and millions upon millions of people listening to you. I feel like I'm saying millions weirdly, but millions upon millions of people listening to you. And you are accountable to those people. Your leadership should be one of excellence. I'm not saying it's perfect. None of us are. But it should be one of excellence, where you really understand that you have a following that are probably do that because you just said it. And if you do really believe that, I mean, really take account of what you're asking them to do, because you're not going to have to live through the rest of their life of being dishonorably discharged. Like, that's a huge thing. Okay. DeSosa's conversation pulls a curtain back on what happens when truth is traded for convenience. It's a warning. When discernment disappears, deception thrives. And you know what? That same spirit of confusion, that same refusal to lead with truth, is what we're seeing right now in Washington with this government shutdown. We're going to get into that next, guys. But we're going to take a break right here. I want to introduce another one of our sponsors. This is one of my favorite brands, Your Skincare. And yeah, this brand is amazing. I love this brand. I have their stuff on now underneath my makeup as my primer to keep my skin looking nice when I wear makeup, and it's like a protection. I'll get into that later, but let's watch this ad. Brand is also one of my favorites, and this brand is called Your Skincare. This brand has tons of different options that you could choose from. They also have an A to Z set and also individual products that you can use. I've actually been using this brand for a full year, and their stuff delivers, and I often get compliments on my skin. So I'm super excited to share this one with you guys today. There are two products that I'm going to share in this video out of their entire line. So the first one is going to be the Purifying Clay Mask, and this clay mask, ladies, is like no other clay mask I have ever tried. It is top notch. And the reason why is because it has bentonite clay, salicylic acid, and glycolic acid as the three main active ingredients. That bentonite clay is going to help to detoxify the face. You have salicylic acid that allows this clay mask to tackle acne in 15 minutes. You will see your acne breakout totally diminished, and by the next morning, completely gone, just by using the clay mask. Also, this clay mask helps to tighten, firm, lift, and also brighten. And you will notice your skin brighten within your first use of using it. Yes, you heard that right. Usual clay mask, it takes about 3 weeks for you to see that change, but this is the very first clay mask I have ever used that you see the change in your first use of using it. It is that powerful. Also minimizes and cleans out the pores as well, and just leaves you with this beautifully radiant skin. Now, if you have dry skin, it's recommended to use this clay mask once a week, and if you have oily skin like myself, you can use it up to twice a week. I'm telling you guys, when I use this clay mask, I really feel like my skin is set for the next few months before needing to go in with it again. The next product from them is going to be their lip balm. I love this lip balm because it has hyaluronic acid, shea butter, jojoba seed oil as your three main active ingredients, notwithstanding that there are inactive ingredients also that are also all oils. There's peppermint oil, fruit oil in here, raspberry seed oil, etc. Castor oil is also in here as well. So you have great ingredients in this lip balm, and this lip balm is made to tackle fine lines and wrinkles on the lips and also seal in moisture and plump the lips. I love it. And it's not a lip plumper, but it does make the lips look very nicely plumped and extremely hydrated. It is like a fan favorite from this brand. I have to say that all the products from Your Skincare are all formulated for sensitive skin. They're all clean, it's recyclable, it's all made here in the USA, and you can also use any of their products when you are pregnant. I love this brand so much that I had to partner with them. And so I go live on TikTok, and they allow me to do giveaways, and I'm live for at least 2 hours doing these giveaways with my followers, and also live stream exclusive discounts. And these are discounts you can't get if you're not shopping live with me. So ladies, if you do want to hop in and you want to grab some free stuff for yourself, I highly recommend you follow me on TikTok, because that is where it is popping when it comes to all of these brands. Also, check that out. And remember that true beauty comes with living in the peace of God, purpose, and a life full of love and serving others. Again, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you subscribe, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Okay, guys, I love this brand because it's customized. You can take a quick quiz, and they will analyze your skin type. They use it like an AI skincare tool that will help to analyze the type of skin you have, and to also send you products that actually work for you, not a generic one size fits all type of routine, which I love, because I feel like if you can get this more targeted, you are more likely to see the products be effective. And I love that this line is it's clean, it's affordable, it's effective. You can use them all when you're pregnant. I love that as well. If you check the link in the show notes or right up here as well, you can get your own personalized skincare set and see why I swear by Your Skincare. If you go through their actual website, which is the link at the top, the https yourskin.com, use that discount code there, will automatically be applied. You can take their quiz and find out which routine will work best for you. Try it out. I promise it'll work. With that as well, you'll get free birthday gifts. You'll get free refills. So if you find a product that you absolutely love, which I have a lot from this line that I absolutely love, you also get free shipping. And if you go through my Amazon storefront, that's another option. My Amazon storefront is just Aisha Schreiner. You can use Aisha 15 off, and that will take 15% off of any order that you want to pick out. So if you want to grab anything from their skincare to their makeup line, you can do that and then take that percentage off if you're doing Amazon, and as well as on their website too. Okay, I love that brand. Highly recommend checking them out. Okay, now back to Washington. So we have this government shutdown. I definitely wanted to talk about this as well. And I'm gonna hit on this a little bit, guys, because I know I'm pushing for time a little bit, and I also want to talk a little bit about what we've seen happening between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip and Hamas. So we'll hit on that too. But all right, so let's break this down, because I think I don't know about you guys, but if you're confused about what a government shutdown is or what this really means, I'm going to just break it down. I do have a little image that I want to show you guys to kind of explain who's affected by this government shutdown every time it happens. So, a shutdown happens when Congress can't agree on how to fund the government, and they either fail to pass their regular budget bills or what we're in right now in a short term fix called a continuing resolution, also known as a CR. If you've seen Speaker of the House Mike Johnson talk about this, I love the way that man is amazing. He's very good at explaining things, and he's just very good orator. But when that happens, agencies run out of legal authority to spend money, which means non-essential services stop and employees are furloughed until a deal is made. So let's look at the chart from Fox News. I think we have that put up. There we go. So this is kind of, I wanted to show you guys this because it kind of breaks down who's all affected. Because I know when we say like non-essentials, it's like who all are they? We can probably pin out a couple of them, but this right here really breaks down from the different, uh, I guess, not aspects, different areas of our society, where you have non-essential services that we consider non-essential services affected by this. And I mean, this is still real people's lives and their pockets and money, right, that are affected. So mass furloughs at multiple government agencies. We're seeing the federal employees and active duty military won't get their paychecks during the standoff. I have a funny story of a friend of mine who, just a few days ago, I think it was, no, was it yesterday? I think it was Thursday. I spoke to him, and he was in the military at one point in Spain, and he was like, um, he goes, if the, government shut down. I remember when I had the government shut down and I wasn't getting paid, but I was in Spain. So, per pesos per dollar, it really didn't matter because like I still had a ton of money that I could use for American dollars. But you're talking about a furlough in America. That's different. Is what he shared with me. And I get it because I spent 5 months in Chile, in Santiago, Chile. Woo-hoo. I love Chile. That's like a second home to me. And the American dollar goes very far in those second world, third world countries, very, very far. Like you can live there for a good few months, get yourself a nice place off of the American dollar. And so I'm not sure how well that is doing now, but back then it worked great. So you can expect travel delays because TSA and air traffic control workers are working without pay. There are delays in Social Security, SNAP, WIC, Medicare, and Medicaid payments. Some VA services, like career counseling, will shut down, and even national landmarks like the Washington Monument could close. I don't know if you guys saw AOC. There's no touring right now. Usually, the usual touring that they have going on at the White House. But AOC was taking people through, and there was, as she said, there was a group of students that appeared that showed up from the Bronx. Which, if you watch my couple of episodes back, we debunked whether or not she was actually from the Bronx. She might have, spent some of her life there, but the majority of her life was not spent there. Okay, so even though she still continues to claim that she's from the Bronx, but a group of kids from the Bronx came and she just gave them a tour. Um, it's sweet. I thought it was a good touch, but yeah, these are real world effects on families, guys. But here's what's wild: this isn't new. So we've had shutdowns before. So if we look at 2013 under Obama, it was over Obamacare funding, right? In 2018 and 2019 under Trump, we saw the longest one ever. I think that one was like 35 days, and that was over border security, which the OBBB has secured that this go round. But as you can see, the Democrats are still trying to kind of inch their way in to throw in some of the policies that they want. I know the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, when I was listening to him, he talked about, and he even gave proof, and I went and look it up because he said to go on speaker.com and go, and he gave a little spiel on how to get to the actual document so you can see what they're trying to put into, what they're trying to amend in order for them not to have the government shut down any longer. And they're basically trying to fund, uh, Medicaid for illegals. And it's true. And they get on there and they bold out lie. Now they can say it's not a lie because, of course, Biden rewrote what it means to be an illegal. And so when they say that they're not doing it for illegals, and somewhat, if you look at how the Biden administration did it, they're not necessarily lying, even though they are, because now Trump has labeled these people as illegal. If they're going off of the Biden administration's type of wording when it comes to illegal immigrants, which is why. But it's so funny that they're just manipulative. They're just manipulative. And if you've been watching this lately, you saw the numbers that came out of this, how many Republicans voted for us not to have the shutdown, and how many Democrats, just because they didn't get their way, were saying, "Oh, let's shut down these non-essential services." And I was talking to my husband about this. I'm kind of rambling just a bit, but I was talking to my husband about this, and I'm like, why does the American people become affected by what's happening so much? And I get it. This is our leadership, so yeah, we're gonna have an effect. But if we could say, Congress, y'all not getting paid either, or y'all not going home until y'all get this settled. Y'all got to sleep right here in this conference room until we get this settled, right? If we did something like that, maybe we would have better outcomes and faster outcomes when it comes to these government shutdowns. If it actually could affect the Congress person making the decision and not just the American people. Every time you look at our leadership, there's always an effect on the American people and that and the level of us where they're leading and guiding us, and there's no accountability for them. And I've seen some comments of people saying, that's why we need term limits. Term limits might be an answer. I don't know. Charlie Kirk's not here for me to ask, but maybe that's an answer. But I feel like our leadership in America, and thank God for Donald Trump. Still, though, we need strong leadership. We need people to take accountability. And I love something that Trump said, and I said this in one of my videos, is that, and he said this when he was meeting with the president of Turkey. He said, "I am the president of all Americans." So even you guys that don't like him, that want to see him dead, unfortunately, I don't know how you could ever want to see somebody dead, but there are people that exist that do. Um, Even those people that just hate him, I love that he reminds us who he is, and he knows it. He is the president of every American. And I love that he also stated that when it comes to TikTok about censoring and stuff, because the conservative voices definitely have been censored on all platforms, all of them. That's why Donald Trump has been censored everywhere. That's why my friend Lindsay Loomis has been censored everywhere. I have a lot of friends that are conservative, high, real conservatives are censored on these apps. I mean, if they try to, you know, even start another account, immediately blocked. Can't even start an account. Can't even open up a new one. So hopefully that changes on TikTok. But anyways, you know, um, I think if we have this stronger, more accountable leadership, like even if we did have term limits, I think that's a part of accountability. I think we could go very, very far in this nation if we have stronger leadership. People that are just not like, I just want to stay in power, like we see with the group of AOC and the other guy, um, who I forgot his name. Mike, if you can help me out. He is AOC is gunning for his seat.
Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer. Thank you so much. Um, because Mike Johnson and many others have stated that he's really just doing this because he's afraid of losing his support because of past things he's voted for and past stances he's made. I think if we could have people that care more about just having power and just really care about the American people, and I get it, when you don't have God at the center, and it's very hard as a human being without God to not let power and all that go to your head. It's very hard, you know. I look at my pastors, and my pastor had this woman is brilliant. She is brilliant. Like she is brilliant. She was offered a position at the Pentagon many times. And declined because she felt her calling was to raise up an army in the church. I'm a part of that army. I'm proud to say that because without her, I would fall for the, oh, Black Lives Matter and um the police defund them. I would fall for all of that. I would. If it weren't for someone that said, this is the word of God, look it up, understand what it means, and interpret it for your life. You know, and she's a mentor of mine too. So I ask for help when I need help. But if it weren't for people like her that say like, without the money and the fame, I'm going to serve this group of people that are way beneath me in thinking monetarily, because I came from the hood. My thinking was nothing like the way she thinks at all. I don't know how she took the time to say, I see potential in this girl. I don't know, but she did. Um, she's helped me out a ton. I can go into on and on how she's helped raise me to be the woman that I am today, that's solid, that knows who I am, and she's white and I'm black. just so y'all know. And I still know, I know I'm black. Okay. So it was nothing like that, but it was more so like, you need to know who Jesus is, and you need to know what he says about this world. And that is what you stand on no matter what. That was the kind of things that she implanted in me. Um, but anyways, so that type of leadership when I see from her is like she's willing to turn down high paying things, like all these offers to say, this is my call and I'm going to serve these people with everything I got. Um, I'm going to give one more example from my pastor, because when I think about excellent leadership, I think Donald Trump's doing an amazing job. But I think about my pastor though, like a woman who lost her son in a horrible car accident right in front of her when he was 19 years old on Christmas Eve. And, you know, watching him pass, she said this: I prayed and I said, God, you can have my son, but I want every single youth in my city. I was that youth that came in during that time. I was 16 years old, and there was a bunch of us that came into church at that time that she helped to get off the streets, get off of the drugs, get off of selling dope, all this stuff. A woman that never grew up around that at all, never ever grew up around that, had the amazing opportunity to become someone huge, and said no. Like that's what I mean by true leadership. Like someone that says, like, that has principles and morals and a different worldview. There's just, I'm just going to serve where I know I'm called, no matter what it costs me. That type of leadership. The truth is, America doesn't have a money problem. When we think about these government shutdowns, it has a management problem. And thank God for Trump, right? Because I know some of you guys would say, oh, he was bankrupt or whatever, but you just don't understand the mentality to understand why he decided to do the bankruptcy and not this billionaire type mentality, okay? And you just got to look into it versus just regurgitating what you see on CNN to understand it. Our federal government is massive, it's bloated and wasteful. So when they can't get their way, they threaten essential workers' paychecks instead of cutting the waste. But we've seen Donald Trump do that, which is we're grateful for. But what we're seeing from the left is this same mentality here of wastefulness. If families can't agree on a budget, they can't they cut back on luxuries, right? They don't stop feeding their kids. But in Washington, they do the opposite. They play politics with people's paycheck. And here's the spiritual truth behind it: God is a God of order. But for our leaders profit from but our leaders profit from chaos. Every crisis becomes a headline. Every headline becomes fundraising. So the shutdown isn't just about numbers. It's also about values. Who's willing to stand for stewardship, accountability, and truth? And we see that with the Trump administration, which I'm very happy I voted for, by the way, because they're still calling it as it is. Like the Democrats want to hide behind wordings, and they always do this. They reframe the wordings of stuff. Oh, it's gender affirmation. We're affirming versus gender mutilation. That's what it is. They rephrase it so they soften the blow. They soften what's actually being done and make it more acceptable. We need leaders who will stop performing and just start governing again. Okay, and very grateful for Donald Trump again, because he's hit all of these. He's hit the stewardship. He's hit the accountability. He's hit the truthfulness. He's trying to go after all of these things. That we, he's still fulfilling. I'll just sum it up in this: he's still fulfilling his campaign promise. He's still doing it, and he's doing a great job. He's running very, very hard. I can't believe we're still under a year. It feels like we've been here longer because of how much he's accomplished in such little time. And God bless him. I also want to get to this before we get to our next sponsor. Kilmar Brego Garcia. I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but on one of my very first ever episodes on beautiful Ex America News, I chatted with you guys a little bit about my findings. We were talking about illegal immigration first, and then we went into talking about Kilmar Brego Garcia, because at the time that I started doing my podcast, this was a huge thing in the media about this guy, where the left was saying, oh, this is an innocent Maryland father, and the right was saying, no, like, let me break down all of these things, right? And so we saw, I brought in for you guys evidence that I actually did myself. work that I did researching this guy's background, and I brought that to the forefront and all that. And the verdict now, the verdict as of yesterday, when I saw a clip from Jesse Waters, is that he is going to be deported. Now, because the final judge basically ruled out or denied his appeal, so he's going to be deported. And the question now is where. Okay, so he has again, I think I say he has some options, but yes, the question is where. So he is going to be deported. Okay. Um, Before we wrap up today, um, I want to just bring all of this together. Candace Owens shows what happens when charisma replaces conviction. She's reaching Gen Z, a generation searching for truth, but instead of grounding them, she's spreading or feeding confusion. Dinesh D'Souza's interview shows what happens when people abandon principles, manipulation takes over. And the government shutdown, it's what happens when an entire political system loses its moral compass. We're living in a time where deception sounds like confidence and weakness parades as compassion. But as believers, we know the real answer isn't politics, it's spiritual. Okay. John 10:10 says the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. We need to cling to that truth and live it boldly and model discernment for the next generation. If today's episode spoke to you, share it, tag me. You can share your comments, etc. Sometimes I get to reading comments, a lot of times I do not because I'm on lots of different platforms, guys. If you can put up that last just my the last asset of where they can find me. So on Facebook, and also I have on TikTok as well, Aisha Schreiner. You can find me there because it's how I got my start. But for my podcast and for politics, you can find me at Aisha Speaks Truth on TikTok, X, and on Rumble and on YouTube. Let's keep spreading truth with love and conviction and unapologetically. Until next time, guys, stay rooted, stay awake, and keep standing for what's right. This is Aisha Speaks Truth signing off. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.